Welcome back to another edition of the Night Report podcast. I'm your host, Mike Broadbent. Joining me once again are my co-hosts, Richie O'Leary, Alec Crouthamel, and our special guest, former Hawkeye football player and host of Eyes on Big Ten or Eyes on the Big Ten podcast, Jeffrey the Greek. Jeffrey, completing our home and home here. Thanks for joining us, man.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I love getting in touch with Rutgers fans. It's fun stuff. So I appreciate this.
Yeah, we are few but mighty, and we certainly are excited to have a seat at the table after so long of not 10 years now of having a seat at the table, but finally feeling like kind of close to being an equal. But anyway, this podcast is presented to you by FanDuel. If you want to still get in on the action, I think Rutgers is sitting at a 2.5-point dog, plus 115 on the money line on FanDuel. So there's still a good opportunity if you think Rutgers can pull this one off on the money line. But before we kind of get into the matchup, I want to first send a congratulations to Kirk Ferentz. He's got the all-time Big Ten wins record now. I know that, similar to Greg Schiano, I feel like there's a vocal minority of the fan base who always kind of want Greg to go. Is there a similar, what are the vibes around the Iowa Hawkeyes program right now with regards to Kirk Ferentz?
On the note on Rutgers fans, I feel like y'all are unapologetically honest with your takes. You're not going to hold anything back. There's maybe a little bit of that with the Iowa fans as well. Listen, you're never going to bat 1,000 with this. My gosh, there was people that were ready to fire Nick Saban as Alabama fans if he has one loss, right? So there's no way to ever get everybody on board. But for the most part, a high percentage of Iowa fans have absolutely loved the Kirk Ferentz era. Kirk Ferentz as the man himself, I believe, very much so. Awesome to get. You have to understand how hard it is to win enough games over that stretch of time to remain gainfully employed. It's just a hard thing to do. If you think it's easy to win 8 games, that's what you hear all the time with Iowa, they win 8 games a year. Yeah, they win 8 games a year, and sometimes more. So I think that's something that if I hear somebody say that that's not good, to me, they have exposed themselves of being a non-ball knower, as the kids say these days. So that's my take on that.
So jumping right into this thing, Iowa's suffered a ton of injuries, especially on offense. Can you kind of just talk about where those guys are at? Are any of them looking to play? I know they lost their starting tight end, running back, one of their key receivers. The list kind of just keeps racking up every week.
So one of them was before even the first game. So Reese Vanderzee is kind of our wide receiver that's open even when he's covered. So he's been out all year. So it hasn't felt like we've missed him because you didn't even get a chance to have him. He won't be back for several more weeks, so he definitely won't play Friday night. Addison Ostrenga was our number 1 tight end. He is out for the year. And then Kamari Moulton is starting running back, and Xavier Williams would be like our 3rd running back. Xavier Williams will definitely not play in this game. Kamari Moulton's got a pretty good chance, and he entered the year as running back 1, and he has been out since pretty early in the season. I think it was second quarter of the first game where he's been out. It looks pretty promising that he'll play Friday night. How effective and healthy he's going to be, we won't find out till the first couple carries.
Now, looking in towards this offense, you mentioned a few of the injuries on that end of the ball. It's Tim Lester's second year at the helm. The Iowa offense has kind of become a bit of a meme at this point for how strong the defense is, and the offense hasn't really caught up. In his second year, how has this offense kind of progressed, and what's the look of it right now?
Certainly the Iowa offense comments and jokes and memes and whatever you want to say, it's ad nauseum. It's for the last 5 years or so. Last year they were number 1 in the Big Ten in rushing until the very end of the year, until Penn State got them. And I think they finished 5th in scoring. So there was an uptick last year. There was not an uptick in the passing game. The throw game was awful last year. Injuries. We were down to our 4th string quarterback for a good chunk of the year last year. I don't know who's the 3rd guy behind Ethan Kaligmanis, but I'm just going to take a guess that if that's the guy playing at some point, the passing game would have issues. So Coming
Yeah,
into
they'd be in
this
trouble.
year, they obviously have the big offseason pickup with Mark Gronowski. I was there for the first game. Dude was amped up and freaked out. Like, I think he could barely tell that his feet were touching the Kinnick turf that day. So it was an ugly performance. He looked better versus Iowa State, and then our wide receivers suddenly got the dropsies versus Iowa State, which obviously as an Iowa fan is the worst team you want to see that happen. So first week was quarterback bad, second week wide receivers bad, last week versus a overmatched Albany team. Both of them got on the same page a little bit more. The rushing attack is still strong, however, not as explosive as it was the year before with a guy that's now, in the NFL, but still very much a effective, get you the first 5 or 6 yards. We just haven't seen it happen with the big long runs yet this year.
So speaking of the quarterback, he is the 7-figure man. He transferred in after winning 2 national titles at San Diego, or not San Diego. I always see SDSU and I think San Diego State. At South Dakota State, at the FCS level, he won the Walter Payton Award in 2023. Chose Iowa over Miami to come to ultimately. Midwestern kid. He ended up having shoulder surgery in the offseason. He didn't really get to practice at all in the spring. And I would imagine that played a big part in maybe some of his slow start. What is the general vibe or general feeling about the quarterback right now? I know he's doubled his passing output every game, so that means a 300-yard game incoming this week. But do you guys feel like he's making enough progress to feel good about him going into Big Ten play, or is there still have you seen enough where you're like, this guy isn't going to take us to where we thought we might go this year?
Phenomenal batch of questions there. The offseason, they're all good. It's all pertinent questions. The offseason shoulder, the surgery itself, I have no issues. He's healthy. You do bring up the point that I maybe didn't make as big enough deal as I should have out of him not being able to get the reps in the spring. I definitely think that hurt and put him behind coming into this fall. I'm not saying he's all caught up. The throw game for Iowa is still out of sync. Mark Gronowski is, certainly the biggest part of that. So we're not there yet. What I had tried to tell Iowa fans and anybody that listens to the podcast or whatever is that if you think Mark Gronowski's going to look like, Peyton Manning or just sitting back there picking defenses apart, that's not your guy. That's not what his game is. He's like I was making a joke. He's not a poor man's Tim Tebow. He's a middle-class man's Tim Tebow. Okay. So he's a physical dude. He's nifty, can run the ball, but you want him more play action and, throwing the ball down the field. It's not a lot of 7-step drops and picking the defense apart. So what I believe I'm seeing is that Tim Lester is figuring more and more out about his quarterbacks and receivers and fitting it into what they can do with what, an offensive coordinator would ideally like to do, which is sit back there and pick apart the defense. Not much different than what Ethan Kagmanis has been doing, actually. So that is not Gronowski. That is not Iowa's passing attack or offense overall. I'm fine with that. I like a run-based offense when the quarterback is a part of that run, which, I think we can kind of fit that into Rutgers and what we've seen out of them the first 3 games. So you're going to get a dose of that. It's not the same Parker Navarro type of quarterback. Mike and I, we were kind of talking offline a little bit. He's not that quick, and is scrambled, but it's going to be more designed, quarterback powers, quarterback sweeps. If he doesn't see the second guy, he'll take off running. That's more of what his style is.
Yeah, I wouldn't say in this. I would say he's where Parker Navarro is more like jazz, where he kind of takes everything, he creates kind of based on what the defense presents. Gronowski, once he gets downhill, he'll run you over, but he's much more of like a straight line type runner rather than like a zigzag around the back and create something. One thing I did notice, though, his time to throw is one of the longest in college football right now at 3.37 seconds. I think that's second highest in the FBS. Additionally, his ADOT is about 6.2 yards per attempt. Can can you kind of address both those numbers? Do you feel like sometimes numbers can lie? Is he holding onto the ball too long, or is that thrown off by a few really long, weird dropbacks? And do you think they haven't opened up the deep passing game enough? And is that why his ADOT so low? Sorry to throw a lot of questions at you again.
No, it's good stuff. I do enjoy a good stat. Hadn't heard any of those right there. Those are new to me. If I was to guess, I don't know what stats would have been kicked out of that first game, but personally, just throw those out because he was overthinking things to the degree that, him holding on to the football and not throwing a confident ball, I'm sure it gummed those stats up quite a bit. It looked better week 2 to the point where maybe that was the issue with the wide receivers as the ball was getting up on him so quick because, it's tough to simulate that in practice and have the juice behind it. It looked better last week. Still a couple more drops than you would have liked to have seen. So what you saw was a more confident, get his feet set, throw the ball. It is not a quick delivery. It's not a Dan Marino, it's out, like that, to age myself there. It's not that quick. I don't think it's the elongated windup either. I do think that what we were attempting to do versus Iowa State and could do versus Albany is try to get, defenses in a little bit and toss the ball over top. He throws a good deep ball. He throws a good screen pass. It's the intermediate routes that aren't maybe his strong point. I wonder if maybe Iowa will try to throw the ball a bit at the beginning to set up the run, because as of right now, we know Greg Schiano, he's going to make you prove it. I would be shocked if there wasn't 7, 8, maybe 9 guys in the box and say, let's see if they have, the cojones to throw the ball down the field and make it hurt. So is Iowa going to do that all game? Absolutely not, but could they do enough early, to pull back a little bit on the defense? I think that's going to be interesting to see early in the game.
Transitioning to the running backs, I got a bone to pick with the 2024 room more than anything. Caleb Johnson, drafted him late, stinks. Liddell Best is now with my New York Giants, and they regress. What the hell's going on there?
Oh, God, that's straight Jersey right there. You're on with Jersey guys when you get a question like that. By the way, I would like your listeners to know I'm a Giants fan. I've been a Giants fan my whole life. Yeah. So I actually played with Liddell at Iowa. He's a good guy. I would say give it a little bit of time right there. I think NFL is a little bit more personnel-based than anything.
That's
you
fair.
Give up Saquon Barkley, your running back room is going to look like crap in comparison for about 7 years or so would be my guess there. And as far as the guy that's on the Steelers roster, I know it was a bad blunder last week on special teams. He definitely is a running back that he gets into a lather. That makes sense. Seahawks fan, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. He's definitely a running back that he gets into the groove of a game. So at some point, the Steelers are just going to have to understand. You're going to have to trust the guy that you drafted to get into the field. I mean, he's getting 1-2 carries a game. You definitely aren't getting into the flow of a game when you're, only carrying the ball that much.
Now I went way too off topic there, but anyway, this year's running back for him, I know Moulton. I don't even know. Kamari Moulton's back, or well, you said he's probably going to be back. What does he kind of bring to the table? Because we haven't really seen much of him yet.
He's quick and shifty. He is definitely gives the offense the best chance for that explosive play. The only running back that we have that it would really run through your face is Jazz Patterson. So that will be the 1-2 punch if we can assume that Kamari Moulton is healthy. So as the quicker scat back with Kamari Moulton, downhill runner with Jazz Patterson. I really like Xavier Williams. Unfortunately, he is gone. And then our third running back is more of our third down back. So more of your screens and draws and pass plays and stuff like that. So that's kind of the three-headed monster, not monster, just three-headed attack. You'll hardly tell a difference as far as how they look. Like, to me, if you switched up their numbers, I don't even know if I could tell the difference between them, but that's kind of how their roles are. So as an Iowa fan, I will be anxious to see on Friday night. Am I getting reports early on Friday afternoon that Kamari Moulton is out there running around? How does he look in warm-ups? Like, the news is pretty good, but we'll see.
And moving on to the receiver room again, we've already talked about Gronowski, but how about some of his targets? I believe Seth Anderson had those first 2 touchdowns against UMass. So what are we kind of looking at here in terms of Gronowski's targets, and where's that ranking kind of the strength of the offense?
Yeah, Jacob Gill's kind of the steady guy. He's not going to take the top off your defense, but 3rd and 4, and you need him to settle in the correct zone and make the catch. That's Jacob Gill. Seth Anderson and Sam Phillips, I always forget his name. They're quick. Okay, these are the more quicker game breaking guys than we've seen. It's been way too long since we've had a couple of those guys at Iowa, so they're good. They've had less a case of the dropsies as a couple other guys, maybe a little bit with Seth Anderson. The only issue with this too is that they're smaller in stature. I think that's been hurting the run game a little bit because they're not exactly the most seasoned downfield blockers. So it's kind of a give and a take with those two are in there. A couple other guys, that maybe necessarily don't have to spend a lot of time talking about, but they're more depth guys. So those are the 3 guys until Reese Vanderzee comes back. I don't think any of them are going to keep defensive coordinators up at night, if I'm trying to be as honest as I can. But they might surprise you a little here and there. They've got some speed and they've got some escapability.
And one guy that he's listed as a wide receiver, although I guess he doesn't do a lot of work in the pass game, is Caden Weegan. It seems like he's just one of those gadget guys that can kind of do everything. I'm sure we'll talk more about him in the X Factors, but what does he bring to the table offensively and in special teams, and what does Rutgers fans have to look out for him?
Thanks for bringing him up. I was probably going to, if we talked on special teams at some point, I was going to wedge Caden Weegan in there. Shout out to my 9-year-old. That's his favorite football player right now. He loves him some Caden Weegan. He is a fine receiver. It's pretty much got to be out of the slot for the most part. Amazing with jet sweeps, that type of deal. If you get the ball in his hands, his thought process is every time I'm touching the ball, I'm scoring a touchdown. If he gets tackled on a 17-yard play, he's pissed that he didn't score a touchdown. That's just how the guy's mentality is. Sometimes I think it's almost a reckless mentality. We saw that a little bit versus Iowa State, but then we saw that reckless mentality pay off last week versus Albany when he was the Big Ten Special Teams Player of the Week. He housed a 95-yard punt return. I don't know if you guys seen it, but it's pretty cool. Oh, yeah. So he is a dangerous returner. Shiano being a special teams guy himself, it'll be interesting to see exactly what the thought process is for trying to, somewhat take Caden Weegan out of the game or reducing it as much as possible.
And you could probably pick a year out of a hat, and this would probably be the strength of the offense for Iowa. But the offensive line has, at least from a PFF grading standpoint, looked phenomenal. I've watched your guys' games once through. I'm not an offensive line guy. I'm not a person who specializes in that. Is this offensive line kind of up there with some of the great units that Iowa's rolled out there in recent memory? Or are the numbers maybe a little overinflating how good they've been?
Man, you got good questions. I can't put it up there just yet. The potential could be up there. They have been more consistent in the rushing attack. Some of the stats I've seen, more of the PFF, is that a lot of the yards that have happened in the rushing attack are less to do about the running backs and more to do about the offensive line. They do a really good job of getting up to the second level. We've got really active guards that are athletic that can get the job done. Had kind of some questions at left tackle, but knock on wood, that's kind of settled down now, and the whole unit looks really good. Pass pro, maybe just a touch leakier than what I'd like it to see, but there's also a couple times where there is plenty of times for Gronowski to sit back there and work. So overall, I was high on the Iowa offensive line coming into the season. I'm still very high on the Iowa offensive line. It is no doubt a strength of the team.
Safe to say they're not going to be the answer to this question, but what's your biggest area of concern when it comes to the offense?
Just throw game. What I really want to see, and still don't feel like I've seen, is a rhythm out of the throw game. So again, I always want to try to make this clear when I'm just specifically talking about Iowa. I do not expect, nor to a certain degree do I even want this to be a huge pass-heavy offense. I want to see an efficient passing game. When we run the ball on first down and get it to 2nd and 6, and you have a defense saying, okay, it could be a run or pass here, and we throw the ball, I want to see that 8-yard pass play get hit. I want to see the open guy in the zone getting hit, catching the ball, maybe getting a couple extra yards. We get a first down and move on. That is what I believe Tim Lester wants to see. We have seen it in fits and starts this year consistently. Haven't seen it yet. So that's my number one concern right there.
So you're telling me
No, it seems like when Gronowski is on time, the guys are dropping it, and when they are open, he's not seeing them or overthrowing them. It's the opportunities seem to be there. It's just clicking is another story.
Correct. Yep. And then, by the way, we could throw the ball down the field too. I believe that there's been no act of Congress that I'm aware of that Iowa can't throw the ball down the field. So if we can get that into that would maybe then get the safeties back a touch, and then we can start hitting some more stuff underneath, opens up the rushing attack. We're all for that. I know Tim Lester goes into every game with 4 or 5, big shots on the sheet for what he wants to hit and look at. So again, I'm not trying to say that that's definitely how the game's going to start. But it would be nice to see. I would be open to it.
I'm speaking with how the game would start. How do you think the Iowa offense matches up with the Rutgers defense? And if you were going to design a game plan to attack this defense, where would you start?
Yeah, so not just you, Mike, but a couple different Rutgers fans that I'm friendly with on Twitter, and DMs and whatnot. You had me thinking that this Rutgers defense was, just awful. I don't think it's that bad. I think it's really struggled against running quarterbacks. There's no doubt about that. Some of the quarterback keepers and even some of the design stuff, it's just been wide open. I see linebackers that are lost, right? I see linebackers that are not comfortable in the scheme right now. And when that happens, what do? They guess. They're like, I hope this is where the running back's going to pop out. The running back pops out 2 holes over, and he's out the gate. So, I don't know if that's something that probably Rutgers would have fixed right away. With that being said, you can cover that up by bringing a safety down. Now you've simplified what the linebackers are looking for because you got an extra guy out there. So I would think that's what Rutgers starts out with is something like that. So there's always 2 schools of thoughts there. If we can run the ball even when they have an extra guy in the box and have success at it, pretty much everybody in the stadium knows right then and there that team's in trouble and that defense is in trouble. The other school of thought is try to loosen them up. I think we start out trying to loosen you up. If it works, then you switch to the rushing attack.
All right, so let's switch it over to the other side of the ball, which probably is going to be the heavy versus heavy matchup, the Rutgers offense against the Iowa defense. I guess first to start off on the Iowa defense, Phil Parker's been there forever. There's always been a pretty strong defense. The pure points per game allowed numbers have been very good through 3 games. Do you feel like the eye test kind of matches that, and this is once again a very high-level performing Iowa defense?
Yes. It is basically last year's defense with better secondary play. Now, the secondary play is not off the charts, and I'm very impressed by this Rutgers passing attack and especially wide receivers. I thought the wide receivers would be better than what we've seen the last couple of years with Rutgers. I didn't think they would show out this much. So I would actually give advantage Rutgers if we're strictly just looking at Rutgers wide receivers versus Iowa's corners. You bring the safeties into the mix, things start to even out a little bit more. Iowa has some very, very good bordering on elite secondary play for the safeties. But on the outside, that's what's going to be interesting to me. How is Iowa going to play this? Are they going to play off, or are they going to try to really get up and bump? So that's going to be interesting to see. And as far as up the middle, brand new linebackers, maybe not quite as brand new anymore. They got 3 games under their belt, not at the amazing level, if I could say, that Iowa's been at the last 2 years with, all Big Ten and all Americans. Yeah, our linebacker play has been off the charts. The linebacker play this year has been solid. You can tell that essentially they're coached up well. They're where it needs to go. The pass rush is fine. I would like to see more out of the pass rush, but against the run, thoroughly stout. So that's where the fun part of the conversation is, because we know Ethan Kalikmanis looks good, right? The rushing attack, again, I want this to be an open, forum. Maybe not quite as good with Rutgers. So like that's going to be fun to see how those game plans match pretty quick on Friday night.
Talk to me about these edge rushers, because if I was a Rutgers fan, I think I'd sign up for 3 sacks from one edge rusher and another sack from another, just because their starting edge rushers can't seem to get to the quarterback at all.
Okay, they're good. It is more of a system pressures against the quarterback, meaning I don't think there's any individual D lineman that just absolutely pops off the screen, that when you put that NFL film on, when they're going to the next level, but they're so good, so many of them. And if I could use a, EA college football reference, we don't have any pass rusher that's like a 91 or above. We got a whole bunch of them that are like an 86. Okay. Like that's how the D line is. So we can come at you in waves with pretty good guys. And how it winds up is some different guy pops every other game, So like for me, who are they going to put over your left tackle, right? Like that's what I'm going to be interested to see right at the beginning. Cause I think the Rutgers offensive line, outside of the unfortunate situation you got going on at left tackle, has been pretty solid. They've given Alec Crouthamel time. I also think, and I would love to get your feedback here, because I haven't even recorded my podcast yet talking about this game, but I believe Ethan Kaliakmanis has had the ability against inferior opponents. Ohio was a very well-oiled machine offensively. They were completely starting over on defense. The next 2 games were essentially against overmatched opponents. Ethan Kaliakmanis in those 3 games has been able to be in rhythm somewhere around 90% of the time. Like he has barely looked uncomfortable in these games. I feel like I've gotten to know Kaliakmanis with all the years of Minnesota and Rutgers. That's when Ethan Kaliakmanis looks good, is when he's in rhythm. A couple times this year and many times in the past, when he gets out of rhythm, that's where the mistakes are at. He's not good at throwing off platform. It pretty much needs to be in his rhythm. If Iowa can get him off that platform, that's where I think Iowa can swing the advantage back over to our side.
Yeah, ironically, the game he wasn't able to get in rhythm for the majority of it was against Norfolk State last week, and that was primarily, in my opinion, because he had such good blocking against an overmatched front, where he was able to go, okay, 1's not open, 2's kind of open, but it's a tight window. 3's wide open. I'm going to hold and let him, get past the linebacker. And he did miss a few wide open guys. It wasn't due to pressure. It was due to him, I think, having too much time. And usually it's like 1 to 2, and then it was 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 last week.
But then it would be 3rd and 10, and he would hit eventually it won out. Like in some of these throws, like I don't know what his A dot or Q spot or whatever the stats are you're throwing out there, but man, it seems like it is a long ways down the field, and he's hitting dudes in stride. Like it's not short passes. He has been, throws up the seam, throws high and outside. It's been good to watch.
Yeah, and I think that kind of just points to, him feeling like he's got like a master's degree in the Kirk Soraka offense now,
Sure.
Being in year 3 as a starting quarterback. I think you don't really see that often in college football anymore, where a guy stays with the same play caller at least for that long. And I think this is by far the best wide receiver unit he's had in his career. I think that certainly helped as well.
It's almost like offensive coordinators, quarterbacks, and head coaches could learn something from Luke Altmaier and Ethan Kaliakmanis, that if you keep a quarterback and offensive coordinator around together for 2-3 seasons, maybe good things happen from it. Maybe not switching out a quarterback every 12 months is a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, wild concept. We'll have to study it more to see if it actually works out. But I think there's a whole lot of something there. You could tell me if I'm wrong, but the linebacker play hasn't, like you've already alluded to, kind of lived up to recent standards for Iowa. Both starting linebackers, PFF has attributed 5 missed tackles in the first 3 games in Jaden Harrell and Carson Sharer. Do you view the linebackers as the weakest point in the defense right now, or is that maybe some of those numbers a little overinflated?
Sure, they're the weak part of the defense, but they're not weak. They are. Sure. They're solid. They're just the reason those guys haven't cracked the lineup is because typically if you're a young guy that cracks the lineup, you're popping athletically. Like coaches look at you and they say, we are willing to put up with a couple mistakes because of what this cat brings to the table for straight athleticism. We don't have that with these linebackers. But what we need out of this defense right now is, getting guys lined up and getting into the right position. And I believe Harrell and Shire, they're there. Like I'm pretty convinced after the first 3 games that they know what they're doing. They'll make most of the available tackles in these games. But yeah, if you get a quick enough dude that really gets our linebackers into open space, we're going to have some issues. But that's where the D-line comes in, making sure that with that stout four-man front, it's tough. It's tough to find a lot of gaps. Most of the time it comes on a cutback is where you will see that. But I'd love to ask you guys questions because, listen, I have been a gigantic fan of Rutgers running backs for the past 6-7 years. The fun guy, Kyle Munungai, that's what we call him on the Eyes On Big podcast. We love that dude. Fair to say that there isn't a Munungai type of guy, solid dudes on the roster, but I would maybe ask back, do you have what's your thought process with O-line blocking and running back skill to take advantage of that?
So I think we'll be certainly playing at a disadvantage in the trenches along the offensive line versus Iowa's defensive front. I don't want to sound overly like a homer, but I do feel like Rutgers has a Munungai-like replacement in Antoine Raymond, who's a true sophomore. He actually enrolled early. He was going to be a high school senior last year. His school closed in Florida, so he said, I have the credits. Can I enroll now? And the coaching staff was like, absolutely, you can enroll right now. We want to keep you. He was a 4-star kid. He's from Canada. Last year, Kyle Munungai missed 2 games, the the Minnesota game, and he also missed the bowl game. In backup duty and spot starts, I think he had like 500 rushing yards and 8 touchdowns. He led the Big Ten freshman in terms of rushing touchdowns. This year, he's kind of picked up where he's left off. I think he's PFF's number 6 rated running back right now, which I believe is second only to Jonah Coleman in the Big Ten. So I wouldn't go on the limb to say he's as good as Kyle right now because I think that's kind of blasphemy. But I think he's 90+% of what Kyle gave us, which we'll take any day of the week. You guys can kind of check me if I'm speaking out of turn here, but that's kind of my read on Antoine Raymond.
I think on top of it, there's not enough love for him specifically because they haven't had to make him that bell cow back that Munungai was. I think if he had the carries and the amount of touches that Munungai had, he'll have almost similar numbers. But there's such a pass-heavy offense now. Like last week, they passed like 70% of the time, and we all sat there like, "What the hell's going on? Like this is not Rutgers. Like what school is this? Is this Oregon? This is weird. You can do this." And but Antoine Raymond, I think if he gets the carries, he runs a similar run style, similar stature, similar kind of a bowling ball that just bounces off a bunch of pins and ends up somehow falling forward for an extra 2 yards, no matter where he's at on the field.
Yeah, and Mike, you and I had DM'd a little bit. I had said, I like Raymond in the DMs. I know you lost a running back that would hurt a little bit with depth, right? As far as 1, 2, 3 type of depth, we're big. We're big on pair and a spare on the Eyes On Big podcast as far as the running back room that you got to have. So I like Raymond. I don't know if I'm at 90% Munungai yet. That might be because 90% Munungai that's fantastic. Maybe 80%. I would just choke it back a little bit. And then usually where you see the issues early on for running backs that are younger and small-ish, I'm not saying he's not physical, is in pass pro, blocking those linebackers that are coming in when you bring a 5-man stunt and stuff like that. So that's usually where you see, the issues coming up overall in the offense. But that's not to besmirch Raymond himself. So I think he's definitely got a bright future. And as far as the style of Rutgers now, which was basically the last 4 or 5 games last year and the first 3 games this year, my sometimes podcast partner, Jordan, he's calling them Rovers. Rutgers overs. He loves betting the Rovers right now in these games because I still don't know if the market has caught up to the fact that Rutgers is throwing the ball down the field and also at the same time not exactly playing the most stingy defense. It's a bizarro Shiano world that you guys are all living in right now.
Yeah, it feels like the upside down for sure, and I think that'll be a key matchup this week. Is which kind of style wins out? Like, is Rutgers able to turn the game into a track meet, or is Iowa able to turn it into a take the ball out of the air out of the ball type matchup?
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
so I think whatever style ends up winning out will win the game. I know that Alec, you had a question about the secondary we haven't gotten to.
Yeah, I guess before that, so there's definitely something quirky about Iowa's defense besides it being very good. It seems like there's a couple of, if you look at Iowa's depth chart, there's a couple different position things, whether it's the Leo, which is a little bit more common, but then it seems like a Phil Parker special at the cash position on defense. I guess for fans who may not know, could you take a look into that a little bit? And then I guess who would play that position? What kind of threat do they provide on the defensive side?
Yeah, so for years and years, Norm Parker to Phil Parker, all right? The defensive coordinator's no relation. It was a straight 4-3, all right? 3 linebackers, middle linebacker, 2 outside linebackers. The only thing that was switched up is they started switching to one of the outside linebackers was a little bit more of a cover guy. Got burned on a play, ironically, by Wisconsin. Where they single an athletic tight end on one of our linebackers, and that was it. That was enough for them. They started to incorporate this cash thing, which was literally overnight. The next game, this cash thing was there. It's been the norm now for 5-6 years, something like that. Whatever it's been. I love me some cash. I love our cash player, which is Zach Lutmer. He's good. I don't have to tell you, man. He's good against the run. He's good against the pass. He's one of my favorite guys. So, for the layman, it doesn't look much different than the 4-3. Like my joke is the difference between a 4-3 and a 4-2-5 is about 20 pounds, right? As far as how this goes. So, but that's what it looks like. So but that cash guy, that's your guy that would start to hunt out a mobile quarterback, right? That's your guy that on 3rd and 7, if they like to go to a running back or a tight end, out of a standard like 11-man front or 11 personnel on offense, that's where the cash guy goes. So huge in our defense to have success at that guy. Knock on wood, first year going for Lutmer, he's looked pretty darn good in this role.
So essentially a 4-2.5, you could say.
I mean, it's a 4-2-5. Nickel heavy. Again, like. You can't reinvent this. It's not like somebody's doing a 1-9-1. I don't know. There's only so many ways you can do this, but it's just a little bit of a tweak. Some different things you can do with a guy that's a little bit more athletic in that role.
Now, looking at the secondary, don't have any picks yet. Kind of similar to Rutgers, are looking to get those big plays going as a key part of the defense. You mentioned the corners and safeties. The safeties is where the strength of the secondary is at. Who is there to look out for in that secondary room?
Xavier Wampa, former 5-star recruit. So he is back, I think, more in his better position, which is kind of just playing free safety. Now he'll come up and hit you too. Zach Lutmer has also been, where am I? I'm lost here. Cohen Ettinger, sorry. Cohen Ettinger, also very good. I spoke early in the pod about liking the safeties. So you could pretty much pick any one of those 3 that are out there. Now, what's interesting is, so there's a joke that was this week, which is for the last 4 or 5 years, the Iowa DBs have called themselves the Dough Boys, as in, like we make the dough, we make it happen or whatever. Well, through 3 games, they don't have any picks. So Phil Parker came out and said they're the No Boys, getting in their face, like no interceptions, not making, any big plays. So the challenge is up against this secondary to start making something work, because I'm sure you guys seem like you're pretty familiar with Big Ten football. Iowa's been pretty darn good at forcing interceptions. I think they're still like 1st or 2nd in the nation the last 10 years or whatever for forcing turnovers. That was down quite a bit so far this year, a little bit the last couple of years. So that would be my one bone to pick with this defense, is start making things happen, forcing turnovers, along with, I'm okay. I feel better about the cornerbacks now than I did before, but I'm not at the level of comfortability. This isn't I want to see these guys out on an island all game long type of deal.
Now we went up and down the defense. What would you say is probably the biggest area of concern? Because I feel like you hinted it could have been corners, it could have been linebackers, it could have been something else completely.
Yeah, at corners. It's either corners or just lack of turnovers. So Deshaun Lee and TJ Hall, they're solid. They're finally 2-3 years, coincidentally into a system. So I think finally they're healthy and they're looking pretty good. So I don't know. I got a lot of respect for what these Rutgers wide receivers have shown me. So in my opinion, can I just ask this? Is it fair to say that the rushing attack has took a step back for Rutgers where it's been the last couple of years? I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying not as much of a focal point.
I'd say that's fair.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it fair to say, though, the passing game has took a big step up and Alec Crouthamel looks comfortable? Okay.
Yeah, I'd say the passing game has taken a far bigger step forward than the running game has taken a step back, I think is fair to say.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I totally agree with that. But long story short is it seems the most comfortability is throwing the ball. That's what I expect the game plan to be for Rutgers, is to attack the cornerbacks and see how that goes.
And if you're Phil Parker's shoes, how do you attack the Rutgers offense? And how do you feel like this Iowa defense matches up with a very strange Rutgers offense?
I don't know. That's what I'm so curious about. Like I think it's really going to come down to how the secondary is going to view this thing. Like Iowa doesn't get out of their, again, 4-2-5, 4-3-ish base very often, So like I don't think they're going to like keep a guy back or anything like that to combat it that much. What I'll be more interested in is how does Rutgers attack in that. I would believe the best place to attack is deep and outside versus the corners. Iowa almost always plays either quarters or 3 deep. So like we don't want to give up the big plays. If you get us though, we're in trouble. Right, friggin' Purdue, like Jeff Braun, that dirty jerk. Like he always could figure out ways to get the ball to the parts of the zone that we couldn't reach. So, has Rutgers been able to get to the point with their throw game where they believe they're at that level of confidence? Like to me, it's kind of dance with the partner you brought. So like they're 3-0 and they've put this many points up in the game because of the comfortability of Ethan Kaliakmanis, right? On the flip side, this is why I love football. It takes time to protect that long in order to pull off those plays, or at least the ball better be out really quick. So is that where it folds back to Iowa because we're able to get pressure? I like this D line. Again, don't love it. So can't tell you what the answers are. If I knew all that, I'd be betting house on this game in some capacity. But that's what we're gonna find out. It's gonna be pretty early. We're gonna start to get a better idea.
Yeah, I think Rutgers would be more comfortable if you guys were playing like a cover 3 or cover 4, just taking those slants and taking those outbreaking routes and cut it up 8 yards at a time. If you did try and press with your defensive line advantage and get to the quarterback and force us in those one-on-one matchups outside, I think they would take it, but I feel like they would be less comfortable doing that if I had to kind of guess.
I will predict that Rutgers will have success early. I think you're going to get points on the board, 7 to 10 points on the board in the first quarter. It is for some reason, it's a Phil Parker calling card where it's almost like he comes out in the base defense almost to trap your offensive coordinator, like, that's how you're going to attack us. And then an adjustment is made and offense goes away. So I would predict something like that.
And I think that's kind of like exactly what Rutgers hopes for. And obviously like, the adjustments will, have to come on both sides. But do you feel like Iowa's offense, they did it against Iowa State, but that was kind of like over the course of 2.5 quarters, they fought back from a 13-3 deficit. Do you feel like Iowa's offense is at the point where they can, surge back into the game down double digits potentially?
Sure. Not against everybody. No, I don't mean to tick you guys off or any of your listeners, but this is not the 2023 Michigan defense, that's we're rolling out on Friday night either. So 17-0, 21-0, we're in trouble. Okay. Like if it's something like that, I don't know if we're built like it, but if it was 14-3 early, I don't see Iowa getting out of their game plan that they had at the beginning of the game just to try to catch up at that point. I think they would essentially say, we'll trust our defense and special teams to give our offense enough time to start finding a rhythm would be my guess.
Another Iowa staple is special teams play. You guys had a lot of accolades coming into the season. You obviously have a stud kicker, stud return man, but I'd argue that you guys have kind of been pretty like bipolar this year on special teams.
Yes.
You've had a kick out of bounds. You've shanked some punts. You mentioned the Weechin punt return against Iowa State where he kind of ran back 10 yards and should have kind of taken what was given to him. But then he follows that up with the UMass game where he's got 4 returns for like 190 yards and a touchdown. Your kicker missed an extra point and a 38-yard field goal last week, but he hit a 54-yarder. You guys had a punt block last week. Like, what do you feel like this is all like gonna settle in, or what's going on with the Iowa special teams this year?
I'm gonna cut that up and just use that on my podcast right there. That was phenomenal. I don't know how you did that better than I could, to just be able to go through everything. The bipolar description is fantastic. Yeah, that's what it is. So here's the deal: is Iowa's special teams under LeVar Woods have been so dominant. It's the best way to put it. Whenever there's been any little bit of a hiccup, Iowa fans lose their minds. Like, what is going, like, so I would say to a certain degree, when you have feast or famine moments with special teams, that's almost more the norm for most teams. But this has been crazy, this amount. So I just have faith that a special teams unit and a special teams coach that has been able to be that consistent for that long a time, they'll get it figured out. Okay, they'll get it figured out. I don't have any real issues with our punter and kicker. It's really just kind of one punt. And then as far as our kick returner, listen, he's an Iowa kid that grew up 45 miles away from Iowa City. And I don't know the kid, but I kind of, I know the feel of the kid. He wanted to win that Iowa State game all by himself. And I'm sure you guys have had enough situations in sports and work. When you try too hard, sometimes that's when the mistakes happen. That's personally what I saw. So I'm not expecting it to be a dominant special teams performance, but I think overall I will look pretty darn good Friday night.
The one other thing on special teams I wanted to include in that little mini rant, but you guys have been cycling long snappers, which is always an interesting adventure. Luke Elkin was the longtime long snapper, and obviously you lost him to graduation. What's the situation? Is it like just for like long snaps, one guy's going out, and for short snaps, another? Like, are they just trying to figure out who the guy is going to be the rest of the year?
There you go. So I don't really have an answer for you because I'm not sure if we know yet, but certainly I know that if it was, up to us, it's the same long snapper for all positions, punter, kicker, whatever. So we'll see. It's a work in progress.
Before we get into predictions, Jeffrey, we appreciate you kind of chopping it up with us for as long as you have. Are there any questions you have for us that we haven't addressed already? Yeah, go shoot.
I have one. Is it the shy? Is that how I'm supposed to refer to the? No, I can never.
It is one of the worst branding situations because it's so easy to turn it with one extra letter into a huge embarrassment. It's SHI Stadium, but I don't know if anyone calls it the shy.
Okay. There's no cool, hip way to say it.
No. It's just embarrassing ways to make fun of it.
I mean, a lot of people say just like SHI, no stadium. I guess that's cool. Abbreviations.
Okay.
A couple years ago, it was shit stadium. Let's be honest.
Okay. I get confused every time, and I never know what to say. You're supposed to phonetically say out SHI. Okay. I'm probably going to not make the commitment to doing that, but that makes sense. And then how do we got to mix? You guys are all younger than me. How do we feel about these all black uniforms? Is it going to be? Are the lights going to be turned out in the stadium? Is that the thought process?
Mm-hmm. They do. This is probably the highest production quality of any Rutgers athletic event all year. What they do for the blackout, so it will be blackout uniforms. They will be doing a ton of different things with the lighting. They will have like pregame. Like last year, they did "Dream On" by Aerosmith. They did this like whole production, and it turned out. For the way Rutgers can like get in its own way and mess up a lot of things that should be easy, I thought they did a phenomenal job with how they did it. It really hyped the crowd up, so I think we're going to see a similar thing ahead of this game.
All right.
Being a Friday night game, the only game on in town, I think they want to really make an impression on Fox.
Yeah, it's the only show in town on
let's
Friday
get
night.
down
So
to the brass
makes sense.
tacks then, if you have nothing else. Yeah, sorry, I
Good
had
to go.
a bit of lag there. If you have any more questions, feel free. But otherwise, let's talk about what we think actually happens in this game. Jeffrey, you're the guest, so we will allow you to make your prediction first. How do you think this game actually plays out? What do you got for a final score?
I think it kind of what I was alluding to before. I think Rutgers starts out quick on offense. I think they attack and have success early in the game. Again, I think Alec Manis is hot, so let him deal. So that's how I see. It's going to be really tight at halftime. I would predict like 14-10 Rutgers, something like that, or 14-10, one of the two teams. Then I think Iowa settles in a little bit. I think Iowa's defense makes plays. I think at some point, Ethan Kalagmanis gets uncomfortable or starts forcing the ball, and then a pick does go Iowa's way. So I don't see this as a situation where we walk away thinking one of the teams was more dominant than the other. I think one team essentially will look a little bit better and make a few more plays. I've got Iowa 27, Rutgers 21. So a little bit of a cover for Iowa there, and just a little bit over the game total.
Alec, what do you got for your game prediction?
I'm kind of thinking along the same lines. I think Rutgers is going to break this streak of 30-plus points in 7 straight games, which was still a program record. It was a program record from last week when they did it. I'm going to say, I don't want to make it too similar to last year's Washington game, but I'm going to say it's going to be 24-16 or something like that. I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking too far ahead with by a whole touchdown, but I just think this Rutgers offense, Iowa's going to do their best to try to play ball control, I feel like, and try to keep Rutgers offense off the field. But I feel like when Rutgers will have the ball on offense, they're going to be able to do things with it in the passing game. I will say that all of this kind of hinges on Ian Strong being available to play. If Ian Strong does not play, then I think this result probably flips in the direction of Iowa. I just think his impact and his catch radius makes Ethan Kalagmanis' life so much easier. But if Ian Strong does play, I'm going to say a 24-16 win for Rutgers.
Hi, Richie. What do you got?
Precursor, my predictions with Ian Strong playing, I, for some reason, just think he goes out there and tries his best to at least give an effort. But I do
also think
he'll...
this is classic Shiano of we
Yes.
don't know. He's always so,
mysterious.
It's like a state secret, all these injuries. Whereas it's funny, I was listening to Kurt Ferentz's pressers this week, and he's so forward up front about all these injuries. He's yeah, we're not going to get him back. He's got a shoulder injury. We're expecting him. We want him back by the after the bye, after Indiana. So it's like two different planets of injury secrecy.
Yep.
Yeah. Ridiculous.
Sorry to cut you off, Rich.
No, you're good. Anyway, I have Rutgers winning this one. I think that Rutgers offense is going to take the top off of the Iowa defense, honestly. I think that Ethan Kalagmanis, Ian Strong, KJ Duff, hell, we don't even talk about DT Sheffield anymore for some reason because Ian Strong's just been that good. KJ Duff had a breakout performance. So we don't even talk about arguably maybe their best receiver. It's hard to debate there, but I think this offense is going to give Iowa a little bit of a scare. I think this Iowa defense doesn't really see this coming. I think a lot of people are expecting this Rutgers run attack to hit them. And even if it does, I think their running attack is, like we said before, it's pretty solid. It's not I shouldn't even say it's solid. It's above average. It's almost like Kyle Monunga never left. I really love Antoine Raymond. I might be hyping him up a bit, but he's good in pass pro. He's a good runner. He's got good vision, good first cut and out. And I really think it's going to be complementary football on the offensive side of the ball for Rutgers. That being said, they're going to give up a lot of points on defense too. So I'm going to say 31-24. Give me the Rover. I'm very convinced now after hearing Rover. I'm in. I'm all in on that. And I really think Rutgers ends up winning this one. Now, I think it's going to be probably a 10-point advantage for Rutgers late. Iowa has to kick the field goal, and then they come back, and they just try to get back down. They get the ball back. They try to go down the field. And I'm not too confident in Gronowski being able to lead a game-winning drive. I think this atmosphere, like Jeffrey just said before, the Kinnick Stadium atmosphere gave him shits on his first game. I think this Rutgers atmosphere is going to kind of be a little bit of an eye-opener. He's not used to these type of environments coming from I almost said San Diego State. Damn it. South Dakota State. So I do think it's going to throw a little bit of a scare towards him, and he might get a little rattled and kind of go from there. I think this defense might be able to step up when it comes to their secondary, and I'd say you get a Rutgers win.
So I think this game will come down to two things. One is whose style can be the dominant one, and two, who can make that big play either in special teams or on defense. Rutgers has blocked 3 punts already this year. Iowa's typically known for their special teams prowess, and they've had the punt return. You guys have typically had a lot of interceptions and turnovers in general. I think a lot of what I'm hearing from not only what we've had this conversation, just a lot of content I've read and listened to about Iowa is a lot of like we'll change because historically we've always done one thing or the other, and I kind of like to see things. And it's not that I don't think Iowa can be a turnover machine, but I'll believe it when I see it this year. I think they're still obviously rounding into form. They've got a lot of a surprising amount of seniors and redshirt seniors and redshirt juniors on their defense. It's clearly if you're all like sophomores or juniors and you're still kind of learning into the role, that'd be one thing. But I feel like they have an experienced group. So I'm going to say the style that wins out is Rutgers' passing game. I think Rutgers is able to establish a passing game and forces Iowa to play from behind. Like you said, I don't think they're going to change their style of play, but I think if you continue to have offensive struggles long enough, you're going to have to change it. So that's kind of the way I see it playing out. And I also want to throw a caveat. I probably listened to close to a dozen Iowa podcasts, and I don't think I've heard anybody pick opposite of their side in this matchup so far. So I think we're all we could all just take our biases a little bit here, and I'm going to say Rutgers wins. I think the 30-point streak breaks. I'm going to say 27-23. Rutgers finds a way to win this game, gets their first win in program history over the Hawkeyes in I wouldn't say an all-timer, but a very entertaining game on Friday night. Jeffrey, you've been great with your time. We really appreciate you joining us. Tell us where we could find your both written content, your podcasts, where we can find you on social media.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter pretty regularly at Jeffrey the Greek. So you can pretty much get every lead in to the Eyes On Big podcast through my Twitter feed. And as far as the podcast, it's on Apple, it's on Spotify, it's on all of them that have the podcast. So please give us a listen. We talk about all 18 teams, including Rutgers, including those teams all the way on the other side of the planet, it seems like, on the West Coast. So we break them all down. We have a lot of fun. Thanks for having me on, guys. This is a blast.
Oh, yeah, of course. And I listen to you guys every week. They do a great job covering the entire league. Like you said, it's not just like Northwestern, who cares? No, they actually go into it. They talk about what's happening, what trends have been. It's not some BS like some coverage.
You're onto something with the Northwestern who cares part, but that's just me.
Yeah.
Well, and let me say this. There was a bit of who cares with some of these Big Ten games this past 3 weeks. My gosh, like how many times? I think we broke down 10 games, averaged a score of 52-8 last week. Like, I am very happy that we are now getting, like, every game this weekend is a rivalry game or big on big action. Like, as much as you just want any form of college football to come back, Big Ten football to come back at the beginning of the year, now we're getting into the meat of the schedule, man. I can't wait. We're finally going to figure out what some of these teams are made of in the Big Ten.
Yeah, these first few weeks, last few weeks of September, or first few weeks of October, that perfect cross section between nice weather and actual meaningful football before the weather gets miserable and before
and enough fans still care about their team before they start losing and want to melt down and fire the whole staff. So yeah, we're in the Goldilocks zone. Some of us are about ready to get out of it here pretty quick.
Well, 17 of those teams at the very least.
Yeah, yes. R.I.P.
Yes.
Deshaun Foster. Never really got a fair shake, but it is what it is. Jeffrey, Thank you once again for coming on, and we'll see who's right on this Friday. It's going to be a great game. I hope you all can make it out there for the blackout. Be there, be loud. But for me, Alec, and Richie, this has been another edition of the Night Report podcast. Signing off.